Hello everyone, CSW here, and welcome back to Supreme Duelist Stickman. This video is an introduction to my new weapon guide series. Here I'm just going to cover the basics and a few other terms I'm going to be using later on. Alright, first things first, advantage. Advantage is when a player is pressuring their opponent, usually by an attack. On the other hand, disadvantage is the opposite. Disadvantage is when a player is being pressured by their opponent, usually by being hit or blocking an attack. To put it simply, advantage is when you attack, and disadvantage is when you defend. And third, there's neutral. Neutral is when neither player is in advantage or disadvantage. This usually happens at the beginning of a round, but it also happens when people disengage from the fight temporarily. Now for the next two terms. Knockback and DI. Knockback occurs when someone is knocked back by an attack. Pretty self-explanatory. DI, or directional influence, is when you hold a direction while being launched to affect the speed, distance, and direction of the launch when you're hit. Here's an example. Say I get hit by a hammer. If I DI away, I'll take less damage, but I'll also be launched farther away. In a game like SDS, this can be the factor between life or death, so make sure to remember DI. Now for some weapon-specific terms. First, abilities. This is kind of self-explanatory, but most weapons have an ability, which can range from dealing more damage or affecting the other player in a way that doesn't damage them. Also, some abilities can be directed, meaning that the ability can be used in a different direction than the weapon is already facing. For example, the sword. Meanwhile, some weapons can be reversed, specifically weapons that have an ability that only works in two directions, like lance and hammer. One last thing about abilities is cooldown. All weapon abilities have a cooldown, which is the minimum amount of time that you need to wait before using an ability again. For example, Lollipop's cooldown is around 9 seconds. Now for tech. Tech is short for technique, and it refers to specific strategies or techniques that can be specific to certain weapons. For example, box jumping with the paintbrush. Tech can also refer to when you cancel your momentum from knockback. But in SDS, you're more likely to slow your momentum instead of canceling it completely, unless you're using the guitar. Now for something a little more advanced. Reads. A read is when you pick up on what your opponent does or does not do in response to your actions. For example, say my opponent keeps jumping whenever I get the red ability. Later, if I point the ability up, I'm making a read based on their previous decisions. Something kind of similar to this is a punish. A punish is when you hit your opponent for using a move unsafely. For example, if my opponent used the sword's ability unsafely, I can punish them for it with sniper. Here's another fighting game term, anti-air. An anti-air is a move you use to hit an opponent that's in the air. Here's an example. Say my opponent is above me with the hoverboard. Here I can use the hammer's ability as an anti-air. Now for the last terms. Parrying and blocking. Parrying is when you deflect your opponent's attack with your weapon. Meanwhile, blocking is when you completely stop an attack. Here's two examples. In this clip, my opponent and I are parrying each other's attacks with a katana. Then, in this clip, I'm blocking the gun's bullets with the katana. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. If there's anything I missed, make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to let me know which weapon you want me to make a guide for first. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.